evolution of political parties and how they utilize social media in a modern world. So, if you could see the chart that I was looking at,
Cannot.
it is, I know, it's this. I'm so sorry. So it starts with Republican and Democrats on one side. However, when it's originated, it's the Federalist Party and the Republican and Democratic Party shared. So when we're looking at the chart, you can see that they kind of touch base. And then, I'm so sorry. So they touch base in where they are here as far as alignment, values, their beliefs, and what movements they support throughout history, right? So this is going from 1792 all the way until the current year of 2024. What we're focusing on today is how the Democratic and Republican parties actually separated in about the 1860s after the Whig movement dissolved. So the Whig movement dissolved in mid-1850s in regards to, or what their biggest riff was slavery, which is a really good one to not get along about. So the Whig Party became divided as far as the people who still had conservative values, however supported slavery, versus the others who hadn't. And the biggest factor of what kind of sparked this was the the Tennessee-Nebraska expansion after Andrew Jackson was a president. He was the 7th president of the United States of America. What we may not know or have click every time that we think of Andrew Jackson as a president was, one, that he's a Democrat, two, how aggressive he was. So he was a absolute annihilator as far as American Indians go, right? The Trail of Tears, when you think of how he had actually pursued getting that land acquisition. Since he had a background as a U.S. general, he was just really aggressive. He was just ready for blood, he was ready to hurt, and he was ready for land. And that was his only main motivators. This is later what ended up evolving and separating. Once Abraham Lincoln was in, he starting to get into politics, and this policy was going through, he decided, like, hey, we thought like there was already a division of where we didn't want slavery, wanted slavery, so he jumped back into politics in 1850s, sorry, jumping forward. He jumped back into politics in the 1850s. He failed as a Congress member, representative 2 times, also as a U.S. Senate member 2 times, and then finally, after 5 other fails in a U.S. government position, he ended up winning a vice presidency, which helped establish furthermore the division between the Republican and Democratic parties. In a modern world, we would technically look at Abraham Lincoln as a modern day Democrat. He was very progressive as of the times, right? It wasn't very standard what he wanted to be considered in a man of law. He just didn't want to be a labor worker, right? So he was technically seen as like a soft male. And in modern day, that's kind of like a Democrat. So, I'm so sorry. However, he knew right and wrong. And that was really what it was. So he moved forward, and ultimately, between the division of Republicans and Democrats, if you go too far on either side, you end up on a dictatorship. So it doesn't really matter, right? If you don't see a good and a bad on either side, it really is good and evil on either matter. And the opposing side always ends up having the same objection to the other, as far as, you know, why God isn't the answer, why science is the answer, why we should read more, why we should have a central government versus a socialist government, why we should abolish a nuclear family system versus why we should keep a nuclear family system. In a modern society, it's really fueled because of social media, right? So it's not really news spread like spreads like wildfire, it's that drama spreads like wildfire. When we think of the recent election, right, I want to eat the drama up, right? So I want to imagine that Kamala Harris paid people to endorse her. But there's absolutely nothing to support that. And the fact that you can't withdraw those statements because of the social media aspects, or the fact that maybe that truth doesn't get spread as fast as the drama does. A really good example of this is that the people that spread that rumor about Kamala Harris accepting money from Oprah, is that Oprah ended up coming out with a statement that, hey, of course she paid us because she paid for a venue. It's not my business to pay for vehicle transportation, not to pay for security, not to pay for the chairs, not to pay for napkins. It doesn't make sense for me to help in that situation because it's not my business, right? Ultimately, it's a business. And the biggest thing is how to move forward in a divided country is to find out that there is good and evil, and where do you stand on that? So it's just embracing each other's differences. That's it.